Stage number 28, and it is my great pleasure to introduce Angela Lee. For the first 54 years of her life, Angela was bullied, first by her father, then by the man she married. A disastrous California wildfire caused Angela to question her choices in life and seek to find her purpose. Angela is now an author of the highly praised children's book series, the Bella Santini Chronicles, which is known for helping children learn how to manage their emotions. Here to help us fuel our stories with more emotion, I'll turn it over to Angela and keep an eye on the chat because I'm going to be putting links to all the options and wonderful things Angela is sharing with us today. Take it away, Angela. Thank you so much.
Okay. So one of the specialties that I have is layering emotion into writing. And it kind of started with Rusty being an editor on the first book I was in, Ignite Your Life for Women. And she kept telling me, no, you have to show, not tell. And at first, I thought show, not tell meant I had to be descriptive and make the environment, the world building rich so that people could be embedded in the story. But my understanding has widened to what really makes a story engaging is the emotions that it pulls up in the people. So when you describe, if you're writing fiction, for instance, like I do mostly, you would tell how the character feels as they're moving through a scene. And then that invites the reader into that experience. And so by adding that emotion into your dialogue and your descriptions, it truly does make the world open up to the reader. So one of the links that Rusty sent to you is Storylight Journal that I created for people, basically for people who are trying to write a chapter in an anthology book. It was at the behest of a publisher who was having a hard time corralling a bunch of writers into giving what was needed. And so I created that Storylight Journal to help someone really dive into the emotions of a circumstance in their life and be able to pull the wisdom out from that circumstance. Let's stop here for a minute. Does anyone have any questions or observations?
I'm just extremely amused because my new book that I'm going to reveal the cover of today to everybody is about feelings and emotions, the entire book. So I think it's really on trend with what society needs right now, Angela.
Oh, very
And
much.
I
Yes.
think we're really blessed that you have addressed younger people. I'm shooting for the adults and the inner child, and maybe even turning it into a series for children.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's laudable. And the adults need it too. And that's why I've always said that my books are for the inner child and children. So
So
Val,
yeah, I have a bit of a question. I understand the concept, but do you have an example of
of a
what it looks
story.
like?
Yeah, I can give you. So I can say I lost everything in a wildfire in 2017. That's telling. I woke up at 1:30 in the morning to a phone call. And everyone knows that a phone call at 1:30 in the morning isn't good news. And what I heard was a robotic voice saying, "Wildfire in your area, evacuate immediately." I jumped out of bed. I looked outside, and the hillside was dark up until the sky, and the sky was tangerine orange, which told me the fire was pretty close. So within 10 minutes, we got out, and about 10 minutes later, we lost everything. So what I did is I told you first, and then I showed you second. Does that help? Okay.
Yes, I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's just I don't even have to talk about what emotions I went through, but I'm painting a picture that will pull the emotions in you. And that is what truly makes engaging reading. When you open a fiction book and you're, reading and you're thinking, oh, what's going to happen next? You're so engaged in the emotions and the circumstance that you want to continue on. So, as a conscious person, and I know Amaka gets this, emotions are truly it's the first step in being self-aware. And this is why I have my books for kids, because I want to, well, one of my missions is to raise the frequency of humanity through emotional resilience. So teaching people how to deal with emotions. And
teaching people how to deal with emotions is also sometimes we need to teach people how to recognize them before they can even deal with them.
oh, yes.
And if we grow up in environments where love is not exactly part of, Maslow's low five levels, right? Then
Right, it's not even on the list, right?
right, we don't know how to recognize it when it's real, and we might, be fooled by any little act of kindness, thinking that it's love or somebody's attention. So yeah, the emotions are a big, huge aspect of being able to function well in life, and
Yeah.
being able to empathize and feel that with, the writing that we read. This is a powerful thing to do, to bring emotions in. So I'm looking forward to the rest of what you're going to share with us. I just wanted to say that bit.
And if any of you have something in your writing that you feel like you told instead of showed, if you want to read it out loud, I can do my best to show with what you have done.
Mm.
Nah. Okay.
Virginia.
Virginia.
Yeah.
Super fun.
I remember, Angela, when we were doing your story, how
Yeah.
much I loved how the whole picture, broad picture, showed up through the houses or the buildings you occupied after the fire. First,
Mm,
the tiny
yeah.
apartment, I think it was, and then,
Mm.
or first of all, living with your in-laws.
Right. Living with the mother who built the toxic husband I was married to.
Yes, exactly. And it was how many square feet, and then you moved to.
Oh, yeah, we were in a tiny bedroom with a single bed. And it was like it was like so crunched that there was no space for emotions in that. And
Yeah.
then we moved to um, a friend had offered her house because her sister was sick and she was going to move in with her sister temporarily. So she said, why don't you guys just rent our house? And I was like, great. So we moved to a 900 square feet house, and that was better. There was some breathing room, but really no escape from his splashing of emotions. And so what happened next was that I found a 4,000 square foot home and we bought it. And that was big enough until I decided, I think it was 8 months after the fire that I decided to leave the marriage.
Mhm. Well, it was big enough. It was bigger, but not
It
big
was
enough.
it was big enough, yeah, that I could get away from the energy of what he was bringing in. Yeah.
Yeah. So I loved how that conveyed what you were dealing with without saying a whole lot. Like finding each of those spaces were never enough to contain what was happening.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I really, really was impressed by that and how it came out in the book.
Well, and between you and Rusty in coaching me, um, that was my way of being able to speak to how toxic the relationship was without blaming or shaming.
Oh, yes, I remember that was a big part of what you wanted to avoid.
Yeah.
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 Which is when we're writing memoir, Angela, it's very important that we show ourselves transforming, even in the midst of possibly, yes, we were victims, but we all know that we've got the soul contracts. We all know that we are part of, somebody else's learning, and they're a gift for us. We might not see it. So in writing memoir, to write from a place that's not blame or shame, that's one of the wonderful things that we work on here too. If you want to say anything about
That's yeah, that's beautiful. Because anytime you blame or shame, you are actually putting yourself in victim mode or
Mhm.
victim energy. When you can take responsibility for what you do, then you step out of victim energy. And it's not like taking responsibility for the circumstances, but how you behave in the circumstances.
Mhm.
Mhm. So all of what you're saying is making me really examine like another way of examining my writing because I want to make sure I'm doing that,
Yeah.
evoking the emotion in my reader because I can
And
get pretty didactic about my life because I don't feel those feelings anymore.
right. and you don't have to revisit the feelings in order to be able to evoke what the feelings were there
Yeah.
in your writing. Um, one of the things that, well, lately I've been writing more blog posts and articles than I have in writing fiction, but making sure that compassion and non-judgment is part of what I'm doing, because if parents are my primary audience, I don't that's cute. Oh my God. um, if parents are my primary audience, I don't want to throw them under the bus. I don't want to blame them or shame them for not knowing how to teach their children to deal with emotions, because frankly, they didn't have that. The coping mechanisms that most of us saw in our parents were either some kind of suppression or a negative expression of emotions. So, what I call suppression is numbing or avoiding or denying, but a negative expression might be a trigger anger or yelling or some of the kind of ways that people learned from their parents how to deal with emotions without truly understanding the effect that it has on people around. Mm-hmm.
You asked about a piece of writing that we could examine, and now that I'm looking at this, would you mind if I shared a short piece?
I would love to do that with you, Virginia.
Okay. Um, so it's arising out of the memoir, the quote are from Arthur Golden's Memoir of a Geisha.
Mm-hmm.
If so, I've abbreviated it. If dreams can smolder like a fire does, they can sometimes consume us completely. I know this. I know from this memoir review of my life that the unconscious can do this too, especially when those feelings that we embrace so completely that they become part of us, feelings we store in our body without naming them, but they give us great joy, joy that reaches heights equal to the depth of despair that preceded it. I was 8 when my need was great, and the relief was greater still until it was ripped away.
Mm. Okay, so I love that passage, and um, it's only that I was 8 when the need was great, and that was ripped away. You built into that sentence. There's curiosity. What? How did it get ripped away? What happened? So curiosity is there, but it's not really descriptive of what was going on in your 8-year-old emotional life.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it was, um, and I don't know your childhood, so I'm just throwing something out there. This is made up. Maybe it's by the time I was 8, I realized that I wasn't wanted. I realized that I was a burden on my family, and I didn't know how to deal with that.
Mm-hmm. Those are good points. I'm also like, this is the story arc of my whole book, so I can't
Mm-hmm.
exactly put it all in there, but those are really good suggestions.
Yeah, I'm just that one sentence is what I call needs deepening, in that you want to make it experiential for the person reading it.
Mm-hmm.
Teresa, you're
think-
muted.
Yeah. I think if you look at this, so if you're writing a book that's a more of a technical through things to get an understanding, you don't use emotion, you use technical jargon. And what Virginia read felt more technical to me. I would have never even gotten any emotion from it because it didn't feel like it was something she was actually going through. She was just telling me it was part of what she lived through. And
The
I'd be
first
expecting
part,
something
yeah.
before, yeah, something before or something after that would give me that depth, that would bring me in. Like it's almost like it's a beginning part to something that isn't complete. That's what that felt like to me. And I write way different than I think most of us here because I write a lot of my stuff with, I don't even look at it as emotion. It's just something I add. It's how I write. It's just part of me. And I would see that what Virginia read as part of a technical book on what she was going through to help describe what she was going through, not how she felt about it. If that does that
I
make
don't know
sense?
that we can make that um, determination from one paragraph. She read one paragraph, and yes, the first part was kind of like a framing, a technical. I'm, I'm not coming up with the right word, but it was a framing of how she would view her life from this kind of frame. And the if you write from a purely technical aspect, you run the chance of losing the just losing the attention of the people. I used to have to write safety manuals and talk about boring and technical and definitely no emotion in there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Giving me really good thoughts. That's why I said I can get pretty didactic, so I can hear what Teresa's saying, and I can hear you appreciating, because I'm trying to create the story,
mhm,
not just give an account of one period of my life. I'm wanting to sort of suggest the mystery, that because I ended up going on a lifelong quest because of that,
mhm,
and there's so many parts to it. Like when I was in my 40s, early 50s, it was discovered that this had been stored in my body and was still there. Went for
mhm.
treatment for it. Um, but that despair was still in my body that had been there when I was 8.
Yeah.
So, I want it to come across in the story. So maybe I need to write it this way and then redo it, because I just have to get it out and figure out the
You
sequence
do.
of
And
everything.
yeah, it's
And
like the flow of writing is huge. And I'm I'm a big proponent of not forcing writing, but just allowing it to flow. Um, because more or less my children's books were channeled through me. They weren't something that I planned and plotted and created. They just kind of came through me. So I think, yeah, get
yeah.
it out and then you can look at it. Okay, where can I expand the emotional lens of this? Where does it need to be more framework?
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because this became the mystery of my whole life. The thread is there through everything. And so I want to get it out at the beginning to to create that people can see I'm looking for something. What am I looking for? Like, what was my search for? This wrote up my whole life,
Yeah.
so, and how it went. Ah, so
Yeah.
we've got something to share, because it's
I
enough
think
out of me.
as you write a memoir, you realize that those threads, you know, if the fire didn't happen, I wouldn't be right where I am now and living this wonderful life that I have. Or if my father hadn't been a raging drunk who abused me, I wouldn't have the emotional understanding that I have now. And so it's like I had to go through all of those things in order to be the person I am. And I think as part of the awakening, we're all realizing that those strands kind of had to happen to make this where we are. Yeah. Val,
Mhm.
you raised your hand.
I did raise my hand. Okay. I'm just wondering if any of the um, show don't tell can be too
Yes,
invoking to the reader.
that's a really wonderful question. And so, if you are telling a story that is painful for you, you're going to end up crying as you write it, as opposed to, um, you know, you're going to know when you're writing it that you're evoking a lot of emotion. And you might take a lens and say, like with my books for 9 to 14-year-olds, I don't want to overwhelm them with a story about how my former husband treated me. But I write about wraiths that attack and are energy vampires. And without using the term energy vampires, but by this description of wraiths, I'm evoking this part of my life in my children's book without being too deep or too scary or too much. But that's where your editor comes in.
Uh, where do you put, like, you're dealing with children's books, but if it's an adult book and you, like, do you have a responsibility to what it invokes in your reader? Like, do you have a responsibility in some of the triggers that can happen to the reader?
And this is why when I write especially in my blog and articles, I put it all through the lens of compassion, because I don't want to trigger, but I want to gently point out that, you might be, as Ambika says, the confusion about love and confusing manipulation for love, or confusing toxic behavior for love is yeah, it's a kind of love. It's a conditional love. It's not unconditional love. So you may want to, if your writing is meant to teach something, then you want to shine the light on that thing, but you don't need to drag people into the coals. But I can also say that reading The Narcissist's Worst Nightmare was the thing that caused me to leave my marriage. And that book kind of drug you through all the pain and gaslighting and all that stuff. So sometimes even though it's difficult reading, that was hard reading for me. Another book that was extremely hard for me to read was the not The Drama of the Gifted Child. It is I lost it. The book follows 20 children who were severely abused through their life, and shows it's not The Body Never Lies, but something like that. Really traumatizing to read, but it serves a purpose in that it shines a light on what's happening. And so I think it's a personal thing. Whatever you're feeling, if you're feeling like it's too much, then yeah, you need to back it off.
Yeah, that's a huge question for me too, the one that Val's brought up. Because to highlight, because my book is what, prescriptive, Rusty? Is that what it's called? A prescriptive memoir? I think that's what you call it.
You're muted, Rusty.
Yes, Virginia, yes. Your prescriptive, a memoir plus a how-to, memoir how-to. But prescriptive is the one for sure when you're telling people about self-therapy, the ease of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the quest I went on because of what happened or how I felt at age 8, and that all happened years prior to that. It started way before that. But what brought it to that period of huge pain, because a year after that, a year later, I fell off a hayrack and it threw all of my internal organs out of place. Didn't break any bones, but a chiropractor was able to put things back where they belong because I was in extreme, horrendous pain. Couldn't even walk. The pain was so great in my body. Like my legs weren't hurt. I could walk, but I could barely walk. And later, when I did that piece when I was 50, it came out that I was in spiritual torment the year prior to falling off that hayrack. And that's why I did that to my body. So, and this was discovered through several different modalities. And it just made such sense to me. And then finally, when I'm writing my memoir, I realized what that torment was all about and how it came into being. But I didn't know that back then. I only know that now.
Yeah. I didn't know, like my child memory of my father was nothing really because I had repressed all those things. And when I was writing in Ignite Your Life, the book, I still wasn't truly aware of how my childhood influenced my behavior all through my life. And so a lot of times writing your memoir can actually help unlock some of those things.
See, that's where I've got an added element to what I want to write, which I call prescriptive or a how-to, because I think there's a lot of people whose life gets written up by their unconscious, not just repression, but I lived my life looking for that great joy that wiped out that torment and then it was ripped away. But I forgot all about having that. I just was looking for it again my whole damn life, you know? And I think there's a lot of people that do that. And that's why I call my book prescriptive, because I my whole life was about finding that. And so I became very much a Sherlock Holmes. I was searching and I was determined to find,
A
put it
seeker.
all together. And I thought I'd done that until I started this memoir, and then I realized I had some missing pieces still. So
I don't know that we ever truly reach an end of
no,
self-discovery.
yeah, no, that's
I
true.
keep
But I
waiting
did
for it.
discover this part.
Yeah.
That's very true, because I've been writing my memoir for quite a while, and I just did do two huge pieces that I had not uncovered before. And they were humongous.
Yeah. And actually, writing is one of the positive emotional expressions that I teach. That, there are negative ways to express emotions which hurt you, your family, or humanity. And then there are positive ways that you can express an emotion that doesn't hurt anyone. So it's, when we think about negative emotional expression, there's drinking, drugs, self-harming, anorexia, gambling, all kinds of different behaviors that perhaps your parents showed you or did not. But, there's also repression, and that has a tremendous negative effect. In fact, all trigger behaviors are the result of emotional repression. So if someone is easily offended, they did not process that emotion at some point in their life. Yeah.
Definitely.
Angela, could you say that again?
It's come into my understanding that all trigger behaviors. So when someone is easily offended or emotionally triggered, there is some layer of repression of an emotion that wasn't allowed to process. When I was in the toxic marriage, I was very triggered by my husband yelling at me because my father used to scream at me. And so that was an emotional trigger. You know, when you're a child, you can't say, "Hey, Dad, you know that yelling that you're doing, it's like hurting me. Stop it." You don't get to say that. So you also don't get to necessarily process the emotion because, heck, our parents didn't know how.
It makes me wonder, did you need to understand that as an adult? Because you couldn't understand it as a child, and therefore that's why you married someone like your father.
Yes. Yes. And that's why my books teach children how to process emotion, because then the way I say it is, if I had my book series when I was 10 years old, I would have read it and I would have learned enough to avoid the toxic situation I was in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really about learning, really, it's about activating that remembrance, that soul remembrance of who we all really are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Does anyone else want to share part from?
I just want to ask a quick question. Earlier, you were describing your characters, and I think I heard you say wraith. Is that the word you used?
Yeah, WRAIT.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure, but I wanted to make sure I was hearing you correctly.
Yeah, it's a menacing character that
Or an
behaves.
aberration. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Right. So I put the links in the chat earlier for everything that Angela is sharing with us. If anyone wants to pass those on or use those for grandkids or gifts, and also look into her books. They make great gifts for young readers. If you have any of those.
And if you want to explore emotions a little deeper, my blog is a rich resource of emotional information.
Wonderful. And Ambika, thanks for the question, because Ambika and I were both curious about the word wraith. I think we were both agreeing. You used wraith. Interesting.
I did.
For sure. So will you be joining us tomorrow? I know, and later today, I know you have to go to an event that you're leading or you're curating.
Yeah. I can be back this afternoon actually, because I need to write a blog post. So why not do it at a writing retreat?
Yeah, I come back here and do it with us then. All right. So everyone, thank you, Angela, the jazz hands, and thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you in a bit then.
Okay. Have fun.
Thanks.